Talk live. Let's see. Do we have any others going live? Hello, everybody. Going live on all social medias. I'm just making sure they connect. And they do. Hi, everybody. Okay, all connected. Yay, it worked seamlessly today. Hi, everybody. My name is attorney Michelle Perez. I am live with TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. I'm here to answer any questions that you may have about immigration. I am one of the founding attorneys at Saavedra Perez Law, and we have recently founded this firm, but we have been attorneys for 8 years and working in the immigration field for over 10 years. So together we have about 16 years of experience as attorneys. Me and Isabel Saavedra started this a couple of months ago, and we decided that we were going to do a few lives. Isabel does Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern in Spanish, and I do Thursdays at 1 p.m. Eastern in English. But I do speak, mejor idioma es inglés. Pero si tiene preguntas en español, también yo te puedo ayudar. So English or Spanish, if you have any questions, please comment below. Any immigration related questions I can try to answer for you. And as I said, we're on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, live here for the community for any questions that you may have, immigration related questions. Until we get questions. Oh, we already have one question. Okay. I applied for my I-130 now, and it's 24 months, and it's no news. I have green card. Okay. So for an I-130, an I-130 is a type of petition where you, as either a green card holder or a citizen, petition for your family member. So it depends what family member you petitioned. It might take more time. So who did you apply for is probably my first question. Your husband. Okay. So 24 months is definitely long. I would say if you apply for your husband, it shouldn't take 24 months for adjudication. So if you like, you can schedule a free consultation with us. We can see what's happening and give you some options. There are options that you can do depending on where you live, where we can try to submit some inquiries for you to USCIS. And if that doesn't work, what I've done in the past is we've submitted federal lawsuits to USCIS telling them that they need to make a decision on this pending application that is taking way too long and that you need an adjudication. But I want you to be mindful that even though you applied for this marriage petition, because you're a green card holder, those visas are not available for a few years. Right now, I think they're working on 2019, if I'm not mistaken. So it's going to, even though you applied for your petition, that even if it was approved tomorrow, you would still have to wait in line in order for them to adjudicate the visa for your husband or the residency for your husband, which would be about 4 years. So you might be okay with waiting because you still have to wait for the visa. But I would definitely submit inquiries if I were you. And if you get nowhere and you really, really want this decision, you can contact us and we can talk about the potential that you can to sue USCIS in federal court. Why not, right? I've done it before and they don't like it, but who cares? They're working for us, not the other way around. Okay, I have a few more questions here. Our PD, good thing based on SIGIS I-130 approval. Thank you for your question. So PD, for those of you that don't know, is prosecutorial discretion. And is that a good thing based on SIGIS I-130 approved? So usually when a PD is involved is because you might be in immigration court. And so if you have a SIGIS approved with a special immigrant juvenile visa, if that has been approved, then you definitely, and you are in court, you definitely want to request dismissal through PD, which is prosecutorial discretion, with DHS. And that's something that would dismiss your case in court, and therefore you can just, depending on what country you're from, you might have to wait a few years for that visa to be available. But it is a good thing to do PD because you do not want to continue in court. You want to be out of court and finish everything outside of USCIS. If you, Bapi Jr., if you do have a case in court, I highly suggest that you contact us for a consult if you don't already have an attorney, because you do not want to do these kind of things without an attorney. There are some situations where it's okay not to have an attorney in the immigration world. I'm going to be honest with you. And there's some situations that there isn't, that it's not a good idea to do this on your own. And one of those is court. If you have court in front of an immigration judge, you definitely need an attorney. An attorney is not provided for you. Okay. We have one question here. Looking on TikTok. And just a little bit about my experience in immigration court. I worked in Miami for the first 6 years of my career. So I've handled a lot of deportation proceedings, which is immigration court in front of an immigration judge. A lot of the times I dealt with residents that had issues. I had a few, what they call undocumented or non-citizens, and they had a few issues too, but I mostly worked with residents that had maybe criminal issues that were being deported, even though they've lived here all their life, maybe for multiple simple marijuana possessions, and they were placed into deportation proceedings just because of simple marijuana possessions. So if you do find yourself in that situation where you're a lawful permanent resident and you might be in court for some criminal concerns, I highly suggest that you call our offices for a free consultation. We can see what your options are. Also, I am creating a series, a video has come out already, creating a series about why lawful permanent residents can get deported and what that looks like and how I can help you get out of that situation. And so if you are a lawful permanent resident and you have some criminal concerns, and maybe you're not even in court, and maybe you're thinking about doing your citizenship, definitely give us a call and I can give you a 30-minute free consultation. We can evaluate your criminal history. Maybe I can tell you on the spot, like, it's not a concern for me. We can apply for your citizenship, or maybe I have to do a little bit of digging and you hire me just to investigate your criminal history. I do both. I offer both options, because you don't want to hire me for your citizenship and then find out we can't move forward because of your criminal history. So we do offer a special contract for our clients with that criminal history, so that we can investigate it fully and give you a good response. And then you can make the decision if you want to move forward with citizenship or not, because some of my clients will move forward with citizenship knowing that they'll be placed in deportation proceedings, but knowing they have a form of relief where we can apply for that relief, they can get granted that relief, then we go back and do their citizenship. So it's kind of a circle, but that circle ends up being beneficial because they'll have their citizenship at the end of the day. It might take a couple years, but then they'll be able to travel, be worried and stress-free, and they'll become a citizen. And if they do want to petition for maybe their parents or a spouse abroad, it's a much easier process than if you're a lawful permanent resident. Okay. I have another question here. I-130 approved. What is the wait time for an interview in Juarez? So that's a great question, and there's multiple phases to an I-130 approval. There's something called a visa bulletin from the Department of State, and that's going to tell you where your visa sits in the line, in the queue of the wait time. So in the line of the queue. And if your I-130 is approved, what you want to look at is the filing date or the priority date. If it's in 2019, then most likely you'll be getting an interview scheduled soon. You should be receiving something from the National Visa Center, which is going to require the immigrant to fill out information on there, which is called a DS-260. And then they schedule an appointment with the consulate in closest to the immigrant. So it just really depends on what your filing date is, what your priority date is, because right now for lawful permanent residents, it's taking about 4 to 5 years for them to petition for their spouses. So even though your I-130 might be approved, you might still have to wait a little bit longer until that visa is available. Okay, awesome. Okay. Bobby Jr., yes, I'm in removal proceedings. Okay, so this was a previous question about PD and deportation proceedings. So you definitely need an attorney. I would not recommend doing this without an attorney. But PD is definitely the way to go. Prosecutorial discretion is dismissal of your immigration court proceedings so that you can have your SIGIS or your residency adjudicated outside of court. I mean, it depends on the judge, right? And everything's variable with immigration court. But that's why you need an experienced attorney that knows the judges, that can find out information of the judges if maybe they haven't practiced that in that judge's courtroom. We have a large connection. The immigration attorneys really support each other. And so we can definitely find out information about a judge that maybe we have never been in front of. And we can see how they're processing these dismissals, or even if you do get a PD with DHS, they'll still deny dismissal. So you want to be very careful in immigration court. If you don't have an attorney, I highly, highly suggest that you do grab one if you're in immigration court. Okay. Okay, I have a question from Jocelyn. If I have a new police report for abuse after I filed for VAWA, can I get an expedition? So VAWA right now is taking about 3.5 years for processing. I have seen, and I've always wanted to try this, is some attorneys have tried and to expedite their VAWA. So it doesn't necessarily need to happen in conjunction with a new police report for abuse, but it is probably a good deciding factor, a discretionary factor to use to adjudicate your VAWA. So if you're interested in trying that, you can try it yourself, or you can call us to see if we can take over your VAWA if you have an attorney already, or you can ask the attorney that you already have to place an expedite, to try to place an expedite on VAWA. Some attorneys have been successful in expediting a VAWAs, but I'm not going to say that it works for every single VAWA, because there's a lot of VAWAs pending nowadays. So I think it's a hit or miss. It just really depends if you have a good officer that is viewing your file and maybe wants to expedite. But a new police report for the abuse that you suffered probably will help in the adjudication to expedite. But normally they're taking like 3.5 years right now. But during that time, if you're eligible for residency, you can apply for your residency. And with that residency, you apply for a work permit. So that is always an option for you to be able to maybe have some form of protection with a work permit and the residency pending, if that's what you're worried about. And also with some VAWAs, if you're trying to get a travel permit, depending on your history, we can make recommendations of if it's your risks in traveling outside the country with a travel permit. So Jocelyn, call us for a free consultation. We can try to see if a travel permit or a work permit, or maybe trying to expedite your VAWA, is a good option for you, depending on your history. Okay. Thank you for your questions. Okay. Okay, great. So those were the questions I saw on TikTok. Let me check if I have any questions on, nope, I don't see any questions that I have on any other streaming social media. So I'll just talk more about my experience in immigration court, and just remind you guys about what we're about. So right now we're kind of a virtual firm. So Isabel Saavedra lives in Fairfax, Virginia, and we have an office space there, but I live in Florida. So she's very close to the northern states. I'm in the south. So I think that gives us a good, kind of a good position where if we have clients down in Florida or Georgia or Alabama, I can travel to their residency interviews or any of their interviews with immigration or handle any deportation defense. But that does not mean that we can't represent people in any part of the country. So because it is immigration, we are federal law. So that means I'm licensed in Florida, Isabel's licensed in New York. We can practice immigration in California, in Washington State, in Florida, anywhere. We can practice anywhere in the United States. In Hawaii, we have a client in Hawaii right now. We can practice anywhere. It doesn't matter where you live because immigration is federal and it's the same. We can help you wherever you live. Okay. So we have a new question on TikTok. Hello, I have a combo card. I want to go to Mexico. Any risk of returning? Okay, so a combo card just means that your card says CO9P, which means that it's a combination for those that don't know, it's a combination of a work permit and a travel permit. So you use that to travel. I would also bring your original travel permit. We've had this happen to a client maybe a couple of years ago where they didn't bring their original notice for their travel permit, and it became a little bit of an issue. They went to Japan. So it might not be that much of an issue to Mexico because they've seen it more often. But just in case, I would bring the original travel permit when you leave. Now, there's always risks in leaving the United States, whether you're someone waiting for adjudication for your residency, or maybe you're a resident. There's always risk, even though you have prior approval. We make recommendations on travel permits depending on your situation. So, Armando, if you have a clean history, maybe you have one entry, never been in immigration court, do not have any criminal history, do not have any immigration violations besides maybe one entering without inspection, then I would say generally you should be fine. But there's always a risk. You're at the mercy of the CBP officer when returning from a country abroad. And ultimately, if maybe they find something on you that it is inadmissible or deportable, they can deny your entry. And at that point, you would be stuck in Mexico until you can try again, right, with a new officer. Or if they permanently revoke your travel permit, then that's another issue that you might have to deal with. And this is not me trying to scare you. This is me just trying to make you realize that regardless of your history, there's always a risk leaving the United States. Have any of my clients ever had any issues? No, but then there are some clients that I tell them and I recommend to them, do not travel. Only travel, even if you get that approval for the travel permit, only travel for emergency purposes, just because it becomes even more risky with their history. So in a nutshell, it's always going to be risky, but it just really depends on your history. And if you did get your combo card through an attorney and you have an attorney, I would ask them for their recommendations. Usually they could look at your history and let you know it should be safe, or maybe there's some issues in your past and they recommend that you don't leave. For example, I can think of at the top of my head, maybe a client that had a conviction for a theft offense. And I recommended that they do not leave the United States, even though their travel permit was approved, because that theft offense could be considered a deportable offense, or in the immigration world called a crime involving moral turpitude. And so if they were to leave and come back and an officer were to see that conviction on their record, they could potentially deny their entry because they would say that they are inadmissible to the United States, even though they have a travel permit approved. So I would tell that client that because of that issue, I would recommend that they do not leave the United States, and just wait until they get their residency. Okay. I have another question from TikTok. Hi, your mom. I applied my initial asylum work permit 64 days, and it's still in case decision, so I am stressed. I know it is. I'm sure it is very stressful, especially with an asylum case. If you have a work permit pending for 64 days, that's within the range of how long these work permits are taking. USCIS just released a new processing times the other day. I think it was like April 1st. And they were saying that work permits were taking like an average of like 2.5 to 4.5 months. It all depends on the type of work permit that you apply for, and it depends on the category. So it depends on what it's based on. For asylum, it's going to be probably within 6 months is your safe bet. But if USCIS is actually true to their word, which sometimes they're not, okay, or most times they're not, I should say, I'm going to be honest. Hopefully you get an adjudication within the next couple of months for your work permit. And your follow-up question is, what is next for me? So it really depends. If you apply for an affirmative asylum, your next step is basically just waiting for that interview. You would have your work permit, and you would renew it every so often before it expires, and you just have to wait for that interview to come in order for you to tell the officers what you fear. And if you do not have an attorney, you can call us for your free consultation. We've done many asylum claims in the past. Asylum is very difficult. The majority of clients do not win asylum claims in immigration court if they do not have an attorney. The percentages are wild. I can get the statistics, and maybe we can like post it on our social media. But the statistics are wild. The percentage of immigrants that lose their asylum claim if they do not have an immigration attorney. And the reason is that asylum is very complex, and it depends on the state that you live in. The cases or the law changes a little bit, even though it's an international law. Asylum is international, meaning you can seek asylum in any country that you go to. And because of the way the United States works, we're broken up into circuits. So we got Florida, Georgia, and Alabama in the 11th Circuit, and they decide asylum cases different than, say, the second court circuit that is up in New York. I believe it's like New York, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, New Jersey. Don't quote me on the states, but that's what makes asylum so complicated, is because each section of the United States has a different viewpoint on asylum and what's considered a beneficial claim or not. And so that's why you need to make sure that you hire an attorney when you're doing these asylum claims, because what might work in one state will not work in another state. Okay. And so that attorney will be able to research and make sure that you're submitting a viable claim, and that you have more success in winning. Okay. Armando, I don't have a bad record. I only have one entry in 2004, but it was a voluntary return. Okay, so if you have one entry in 2004 and it was a voluntary return and then you entered in again, you don't have any records, no immigration court, no criminal convictions, I tell my clients it is safe to travel, but my recommendations are always don't travel more than 30 days, right? Don't spend more than 30 days outside the country. When you come back in, just have all your documentation ready. The risks are less, but there's always risks associated to traveling outside. But I've never had an issue with a client that just had a clean record. So Armando, you should be safe if you don't have any bad record and you only have one entry, you should be okay. Okay. Um, okay, let me see if any more questions on here. Okay. No more questions. Okay. So if you have any more questions, I'm on for another 4 minutes. If not, I can again tell you a little bit about our firm, Saavedra Perez firm. We started this firm back in January. We just had a different viewpoint on how we wanted a firm to run. And because Isabel was undocumented for 10 years, and I am a daughter of immigrants, and I helped my father stay here because he had a bad record. He did things in the 70s in New York City that that record wouldn't have been great if he tried to travel outside and come back in. He is a resident, and I was able to get him a special visa a special waiver to be able to stay in the country. Otherwise, if he tried to leave and come back in, they would have placed him in deportation proceedings and it would have been very rough. Okay, so on my side, I understand how it is to have a loved one in fear that they may be deported from the country because of maybe mistakes they made in the past, or maybe they're undocumented, or whatever it may be. So I would, and then Isabel she's been undocumented for 10 years, and she received her green card when she was about 20, 21 years old. And now she's a citizen, and she went to law school just because of her situation. And she wanted to help immigrants in her situation. We're releasing a couple videos soon, so please watch out for those on why we became immigration attorneys. You could get a better understanding of me and Isabel and our situation, our history, and why we do what we do and what we love doing what we do. And that is helping in the community and helping people in situations that we understand because we've been in that spot before. So that's why we started Saavedra and Perez. We want to be with our clients at every step of the way, and we completely understand their situation. And right now we're offering free consultations till the end of April. And so call us for a 30-minute free consultation. You can schedule it with Isabel or myself, depending who's available, English and Spanish, and we can answer any questions you have. Maybe you do have a pending case with another attorney, but maybe you have additional questions, or maybe there's a different route that we can take or help you with. We've had clients call in before where they didn't even know that they had a T visa option available. And we are doing a lot of T visas. So call us. T visa is a trafficking visa. It leads to residency. It leads to a work permit after approval, and it definitely leads to residency. And T visa trafficking can come in different forms, where it may be labor trafficking, meaning you're mistreated and subjected to involuntary servitude at your job from an employer. If that's one of the most common types of T visas. We also have domestic violence types visas. If you have been abused by your partner, maybe your partner's undocumented, maybe you're not even legally married to your partner. So call us if you've had that situation. Also, other situations are a sex trafficking. Okay, and that's exactly what it sounds. You've been sex trafficked as maybe a minor, or after the fact you've been trafficked sexually. There is a special visa for that, and that visa allows you to stay in the country and eventually obtain your residency. So call our office if you're looking for a T visa. And one last question: how long is how long is it taking for T visas? So we've seen adjudications of T visa for like, we've seen 8 months, we've seen 12 months, we've seen 18 months. Okay, so right now I'm gonna say the range between 8 to 18 months. We've seen adjudication. So it really depends. How long does it take us to put a T visa together? Probably about 2 to 3 months, because of the complexity behind it. And we need to get you into therapy. We need to get you getting a psychological evaluation in some situations. And we need to get your complete story. So it requires a lot of not a lot of documentation, but we need your help in receiving the documentation. Then we have a declaration questionnaire with you to obtain the history. We evaluate that. We put a declaration together, and then we send you off to therapy and enroll you in TVAP, which is a special therapy for these T visa victims. So it's a lot of steps before we can file and show immigration that that you're deserving of T visa and that you're eligible. And that's all the time that I have for today. Thank you everybody for joining on all these streaming social media videos. But if you have any more questions, you can definitely call our offices and schedule a free consultation, or you can join us next week. Isabel will be here on 1 p.m. Eastern, and I will be here on Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern, to answer any immigration questions that you may have. But for now, thank you everybody and have a good night.